That's the sound of a big deal. At Wayfair, that sound happens a lot. Dream sofa for half the price? Big deal. New dining table you've been eyeing for months? Big deal. Finally picking up those last few pieces and finishing that bedroom? Now that's a really big deal. Whatever your home needs, Wayfair has the selection, the savings, and over millions of 5-star reviews to back it up. Shop wayfair.com today before someone else snags your big deal.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hello everyone, Patrick here, cutting in before a new interview for you, this time with Joanne Robertson and Shirley Horn, who collaborated together on a new book that just came out about a month ago at the time of this episode, called Shirley, an Indian Residential School Story. So just a little bit of background on both Joanne and Shirley. Joanne is an Anishinaabe Kwe and a member of Atikameksheng Anishinaabeg. I hope I did that justice. She is a graduate of Algoma University and Shingwak Kinumage Gamig. Joanne is the author, of course, of Shirley, an Indian Residential School Story, which we're talking about now, as well as The Water Walker, which was published a few years ago. Shirley, on the other hand, is the former chief of the Missinaba Cree First Nation and the first chancellor of Algoma University. She attended St. John's and Shingwak Indian Residential Schools and helped create the Children of Shingwak Alumni Association and the Reclaiming Shingwak Hall exhibit. Both of them worked together based off of Shirley's experience at the Shingwak Indian Residential School in order to create a wonderful children's book that I cannot recommend enough for listeners who might be interested. Even if you're not in the market for children's books specifically, it is a wonderful read and a wonderful discussion. So without further ado, let's get right into this interview.
Historia Canadiana is recorded on the unceded lands of the Kanien'kehá:ka First Nation.
Let's get started. So I'm here today with Joanne Robertson and Shirley Horn to talk about their new collaboration, a children's book or young reader's book called Shirley, an Indian Residential School Story. And I guess the easiest question to start off with is to the both of you, which is, how would you describe the book for someone who has never heard of the book or who is just curious to know more about what Shirley is as a text?
And that would be Joanne, right?
I was going to say Shirley. I'll just say it's one little girl's story who attended a residential school in Canada and her experiences there.
Okay. Shirley, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I was that little girl. And together we decided to grow this story, I guess, through many conversations, and along the way we made decisions as to what would go in and what wouldn't go in, etc.
For sure. Well, that answer segues very nicely into the second question that I had, which is, how do you actually go about turning these childhood events and memories into a story like this, right? How do you edit your life, or at least part of many years of your life, into a story that is then turned into a piece of art, right, from Joanne's perspective? So how does that whole process go?
So when Shirley and I first got together, she was the one who decided what stories to share. And I remember she told me right at our first meeting that she didn't want to traumatize children, like the young reader would be reading it. And so she picked and chose what stories that came out of her. And then I went from there after deciding what stories. Is that how you remember it, Shirley?
Yes, absolutely. That was very important to me that the stories didn't traumatize the reader, and I realized and kept that in mind in terms of our many conversations that we had. Would that be suitable to put in? Would that not be suitable to put in? So, and to remain truthful, that was an important thing as well. So I love the idea of the way Joanne put that together with photographs that speak to the truth of it and the drawings that speak to the emotions of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a whole series of questions about the art and the collage work, but that's probably, I just as someone who has written creatively before, based on my own experiences, not at all in these same contexts, but trying to figure out what might traumatize or appeal to an audience that's completely different from yourself, right? You're both adults writing this for children. That must have been rather difficult. This is not a formal question, so it's okay if you didn't prepare anything in advance, but like, how do you actually go about doing this? Did you actually talk to children and try to figure this out, or was it mostly based off of your own experience? I guess, Shirley, you can start us off with this question.
Yes, I think more or less we're trying to reaching back in terms of my perspective as a child. So that's what we did. And then as we went along, I kind of, as I talked about one subject or one activity that I did, then that usually led into another one. So I was trying to move it from a child's perspective, in how a child acts in terms of their experiences.
Right. Joanne, did you have anything you wanted to add on to that, or?
Yeah, I just know that I put a lot of tobacco down, asking for help to tell her story, and I do draw really childlike, and how I write generally is more simply. I guess I can say that. So it wasn't like, I don't think I could write for adults, to be honest.
Oh, interesting.
So unless it's for an academic paper or something, but even then, some of my profs have said, yeah.
right, more like complicatedly, quote unquote.
Yeah, I could be a stronger academic, maybe, or something like that.
Interesting. I had the exact opposite comments from my fellow academics. Okay, wonderful. And when you mentioned earlier that this is based off of your own experiences, Shirley. So onto your ordinary weekdays, and are there particular routines or elements that stand out most in, I guess, in your experience that you really wanted to highlight? And how did those come across, I guess, would be the question.
Oh, absolutely. Because when you're in an institution, especially with a lot of others in that same institution, you're trying to mobilize this machinery of children in what has to be done. There has to be a structure, there has to be a routine, a daily routine that each child gets to learn about and put into practice. So it was very regimental in terms of the activities that we had. We had certain times to do certain things, and that all led to the creation of your day, in such as getting up in the morning, saying your prayers, making your bed, running down to the dining room to do your chores and set up the meal, the breakfast meal, and then the cleanup after, and so on through the day. And it was the same every day. And so you get into a routine where you do these things, you just do them. And that was part of the process of how we dealt with the feelings that we had and were experienced in the school.
Right. So that the routine was more of was it a comfort, I guess, on some level that it was so routine, or is it more alienating? Because you use the term machinery in a very interesting way here, the childhood machinery. Yeah.
Yes, it was comforting. It was comforting for us to know where we were,
right,
where we are, what we're supposed to do. Because if we didn't do it and it didn't get done, then everybody got into trouble. So it was important that we knew what we were supposed to do. Yes.
Right. I thank you for that clarification. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying. Joanne, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
No, I was happy to find the schedule though, and that got added to the front and back of the cover of the book. And I think that shows a lot of how regimented their routines were and how many bells they had every day.
Yes. But yeah, quite a day, a 12-hour day. I'm looking at the schedule right now in the PDF that I have of the book. Start at 6 a.m. and it goes all the way to 6:30. The one I'm looking at now, sounds completely completely antithetical to what you expect children to do. Yeah.
Yeah. The changes that came about were every month we changed duties.
Okay.
There was a new roster put up, and you were named to a different duty. So 1 month you might be cleaning the bathrooms. The next month you might be cleaning the auditorium, or even cleaning the church after Sunday, and so on. We had set chores for each of us.
Right. And I guess as a question that extends from this, right, when we're talking about regimentation, I had a question on the structure of the book. One of the things that I thought was really interesting is that each couple of pages is separated up by subheadings. So, for example, the stranger, the family, my family, the Indian agent, competition, and so forth. And I was wondering what informed that particular decision, because it's not something that you usually see in children's books, at least from what few children's books I've actually read in my life, but it's not something that I've usually seen. And I think it's a very engaging choice. So I thought maybe you could speak a little bit as to why that was made, right? Maybe Shirley can start, and then Joanne, you can maybe talk about it.
Yeah. I think I can take this one.
Okay, great.
When I was in school, one of my favorite authors was Eduardo Galeano.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He has very poetic vignettes, like Century of the Wind and the Memory of Fire trilogy is one of my absolute favorites. And so his work always stayed with me, and I thought it would fit really well with how Shirley told her stories to me. And also Richard Wagame's in Indian Horse. Mm-hmm. He had some really short chapters. And so between those two authors, I learned that less can be more. So also Shirley's story in the book, it doesn't always follow a linear timeline. Mm-hmm. So by having those, I'll just say I tried to find a poetic last sentence for each chapter. So something that would make you pause and reflect maybe. So between that and having the chapter headings, I was hoping that there would be enough of a transition there where you could stop and think about things. So,
Yeah.
because you might need that, like if you were thinking it was a linear timeline, like that would give you the break that you needed. So that's what I was thinking when I did that.
For sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah, I really
the
like that it came together with that variety. And you're right; it's not usually in a children's book. So it was to me it was a very, very interesting way, and it holds the reader's interest by having spaces in there as well as the written word and the drawings and so on.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
She was very successful in how she put that together.
Absolutely. And I guess because I had a question more formally for Joanne in this case, did this then structure influence the drawings that you did afterwards, or how did that happen? Did the drawings come before, during, after all of this setup or decision making was made? And in what way was it influenced by the vignette style, I guess, of the book?
I think a lot of because I'm visual and Shirley's an artist too, I think a lot of the visuals came first, even before I had the archive idea of using archive photos. Yeah. Just because I'm a visual thinker. So I really don't know. Like I sat on her stories for a couple years before I even sat down, because I didn't want to cause more harm, and I wanted to do right by her. And that's usually how I write anyways. Like all my papers in university, it was the night before. Like I think about it for 2 months and then sit there the night before and pound it out and do well on it. But I think that's just my nature too. Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered that, but
sense, and I like the idea, and maybe this is something. Oh, go ahead. Sure.
We'd talk about whatever I was talking about. I told her the story about going into the barn and swinging on the rope, and her eyes was light up right away because she already had a visual of that, and I could tell. So we kind of put it together, and it really worked out well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Shirley's very descriptive when she tells her stories, so it was easy to see it right away. Yeah.
I wonder if Shirley you wanted to add anything about the idea of doing justice through art, whether it's the written word or the more visual style. But that can be a very difficult thing to do, both on a storytelling level, but also just the idea of expressing a historical injustice, like is described in the book, right? So what does that mean to do justice in such a context? I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Oh dear, that's a really tough question.
You can take the time to think about it. It's just because it came to mind as Joanne mentioned the term, so that's why I'm mentioning it now.
Sorry, Shirley.
I think we took our time. There was a lot of time that was spent on thinking and having discussions and having meetings together, and how we spoke about the quality of the drawings, and how putting them together that way was important. Excuse me. Oh, I just got over a cold and I just got something in my throat here. Okay. And it was I guess I could really describe it well, and Joanne could interpret it well. I think that was something that we had together.
I think I can add something else here too.
Of course.
And by adding justice, I also mean I really struggled with all the humorous stories because I didn't want to feed into the people who did not deny that the schools existed and that they, like there's a lot of people out there who think that the schools were awesome. So I had to find the balance between the funny stories that Shirley told and the reality of residential schools, how lonely they were, no family, all those things. So I that's why I spent a lot of time talking to Shirley. I don't know how many times she heard me ask, Shirley, stop telling me all these funny stories because I'm going to think it was a great place to be. So I had to find a way to include all those stories because of all the healing she's done. It was really important to her, like that be recognized, that's how she found her strength at those schools, was to be a kid, the best way that they could in those institutions.
Yeah.
So
that's one of the things that I think we both struggled with, was how these stories would sound and so on. But I explained to Joanne that I'm giving you my perspective as a child.
Yeah.
Being in that school, as close as I can come to who I was, and the consistent difficulty that we had as children was to normalize our lives. So we did that every day with each other. We talk about our families, we talk about our community, we talk about the secret things that used to be done in the community. We share lots of stories, which kept us not distant from our communities and our people.
Yeah.
Because we were always forever telling stories about an uncle or an aunt, or something that happened in the community, or something that happened to us while maybe we ran into while berry picking. A bear might have come along or something, but so we could share all those stories. And how for me, it was a lot of trains going by our small communities and looking at people coming and going and talking about all of that in the school. We very often came from communities that were next to each other. Right. So we knew people in their communities, and they knew people in my community, and we were related. We were cousins or things like that. So we had that constant keeping in touch with each other as part of a way of dealing with not having your parents, not being able to speak with your siblings. So we had to replace that. Yeah. So we like one of the things that I can remember doing as a child there, we got together and we started imitating people in the movies. Like they used to have a group of kids that they called the Bowery Boys. It was ongoing movies that were in New York, and there were a bunch of kids that used to be together all the time. So that's what we did. Yeah. We chose that group and we took their names, and that's how we acted. So, I think it was very inventive, and it worked for us.
Yeah, it reminds me of that notion of needing to express creativity within, or in this case, as you were saying, like some semblance of familial relations and community relations that emerge most, I don't want to say, I guess most intensely and most explosively in moments of extreme oppression, right?
Yeah.
Because it's one of those ways that you survive, or it's one of those ways that you live, right? I don't know if I'm oversimplifying this, but that's the notion that I'm getting. Yeah.
Yeah, and part of that is keeping it away from the authorities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'd get in the corners and do things. We were not good little kids. We did all the mischief that kids do, but the only difference is we had to find a way to do it without the people, the supervisors, finding out about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the Joanne, you had mentioned this earlier of ending on, poetic or punchy sentences that kind of make you realize some of the importance of X, Y, or Z story. And I'm thinking now, as Shirley was giving this answer, of the segment that was titled "The Barn," right, where there's this activity that takes place in the barn, and then it ends on the sentence that was our last trip to the barn.
Yeah, because it was forbidden too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well.
Right. But it's a good example, of what you're saying. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. There was elements of risk and daring and all of those things that made our lives interesting.
Absolutely. I don't know, Joanne, if you had anything to add about what was just said, but I appreciate that answer a lot. That was wonderful. I guess, I have something before we get too far away from that answer that was given. One of the things that we mentioned about the art style in the book is that it's a mix, right? In the background, there's usually archive footage or older pictures, and foreground, it's more, Joanne, I guess, your art that's superimposed on top of archival. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, I guess, your intent behind that, right? What perhaps does it say about our approach to archives and or even to history, and what exactly it means to recenter the children in that specific way, or the children's images in that specific way?
Well, Shirley and I both agree that the archive photos add truth and reality to what happened then, but also by taking, the photos out of the archives, off of the shelves, and putting it in a children's book like this, it makes it more accessible to everybody, instead of, going like a researcher into the archives and trying to find things to, like doing your own research. But the one thing, in case I forget to mention it, the thing that inspired me to actually draw on the actual archive photos was the children's book, The Nuffle Bunny by Mo Willems. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that one, but it's a great picture book. But that was the picture book that, because there aren't a lot of children's books that, like, actually I couldn't find any. One of my friends, she wrote a book illustrating on pictures, but yeah, those were the only two books that I could find that did it in this way. So that's, yeah.
You mentioned the accessibility of the archives. Are these pictures were they easy to find in order to utilize them? Like, where are these archives kept at this point? Do you remember? I'm curious.
Yeah, at Algoma University, there's the Shingwak Residential School Center. And after, Shirley, you'll probably speak to this too, but after we first got together and started talking, I went right to the archives, and Krista McCracken works there and is in charge of the archives. And I sat down right away she helped me find photos from the time that Shirley was in school, because I just wanted to start placing Shirley in places, like in the photos from the school, because I thought I was going to illustrate everything. So it wasn't until months and months later that I decided to draw right on on the archive photos.
Yeah. I can't help but read it as a kind of reclamation or reclaiming, I guess, of that space and of that history in a really interesting way. Maybe it's my, you know, English major brain that's overanalyzing a lot of the stuff. I don't know, but that's the first reaction that I had upon seeing those images, and I thought that was a very inspired choice for that reason. But I really like your answer as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice, because they reclaimed Shingwak Hall. Hey, Shirley? They had that big exhibit in Shingwak Hall. Like, Algoma University was the residential school, so claiming parts of the school, and Shirley's done a lot of work on that.
Using them to tell the story and show the lives of the children and so on. If you're ever in Sault Ste. Marie, you'll have to come and see this.
For sure. Yeah.
Project that was put together by what we call the Children of Shingwak, which are a group of former students of the residential school. All the archives that are in that school were brought together and collected through a number of professors and the children themselves that brought all of the articles to the school so that they could be arranged into archival presentations. So there was a lot of work done by a lot of people to bring that together.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah, I definitely would like to see that if ever I'm in the area. Absolutely. I guess this kind of segues nicely into the question I had about Algoma University, which is, and I guess this is more directed to Shirley, although Joanne, I'm sure you have stuff to say about it. How does it feel to see that space that was once a residential school be transformed in the way that it is, right? Does it take on this reclamation site? Is it a little bit more?
Just that last part of what you said there.
Oh, sorry. Like, I guess, yeah. How does it feel to see that former residential school turned into a university?
Well, the thing about it is that I came back to the university. I took up art and received my degree at Algoma University. I worked within the university with the Children of Shingwak, which was the organization I helped to bring together through the number of gatherings that we had for the former residential school students. Excuse me for a second, I'm going to sneeze here. Oh, no, I caught it. Anyway, and everything, the changes that are being made or have been made at Algoma University were done in the greatest of cooperation with the university that we could possibly have had. We had good leaders within the university itself, but good leaders from the former children that were at the residential school. So we were able to work with Algoma University very strongly for people to help us to organize what it was that we wanted. And the first thing that we did was organize the archival material. Then we started going after the building and changing different things in the building. I wish you could see it. And because the halls are changed, certain rooms are changed to reflect the history, the history of the school, the history of the land, the history of Canada, and many in the history of the activities of the children. which were so important. So that, and there's a number of pieces that go with that as well, like the chapel that's there. That chapel is where I went when I was a very small child,
Right.
and it's still there. And the chapel and then the residences of the principals that live there and their families. And we've worked very, very closely with many partners to develop things such as the working with the Canadian Legion to develop a memorial sort of to the girls' school that was in their Canadian Legion's old building. So we partnered with them and created a memorial up in that area, and another one in the one of the parks where some of the children, a couple of the children had drowned, and there was a little lake behind there. So we created a park there as well with the memorial of the children that never went home. So there's a number of things that we're always active in, and to bring this story up. So having a booklet, it was really important because it speaks directly to the younger children that have inherited this story, you know.
The graveyard is still at the school too, and it's taken care of by the students.
Yeah. What comes to mind when I hear these stories is a term that I've encountered quite a bit in reading Indigenous writers, or fiction and nonfiction alike, is the term generative. Right. And what Shirley you're describing of, not necessarily destroying that history or pushing it to the side, but keeping it there in sight and learning from it or building beyond it. And to give a concrete example, I'm thinking, I'm gonna misremember this. I'm thinking of Thompson Highway in this case. Who is he? The one who had the story of learning piano in a residential school, and instead of it being something that was forced upon him, he made a wonderful career out of it, right? That I'm thinking along similar lines. Am I correct in this assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. I love being in the choir because when I was in the choir, it gave me a different, I got to do different things, and I loved music, and I had a very unique voice when I was very young, so I got picked to do a lot of the solo in the church. So yeah, that added the sunshine and the brightness, and bringing the children to another world, I would say.
Right. You mentioned this in passing, but I'll ask the question anyway, and maybe get a little bit more out of it. Is, you, if I'm not mistaken, you served as the chief of the Missinaibi Cree First Nation, and were also chancellor of Algoma University, which are
chancellor, the first chancellor.
The first. My apologies. So first chancellor. So yeah. I'm curious, what kind of I guess skills or what kind of perspective you brought because of your experience in the residential school, right? What kind of skills or experience you brought to those roles, right? That perhaps you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Being that the Algoma University was a former residential school, so there was a lot of stories about the residential school that people didn't know. And I loved being on the board. I was on the board of directors when I was a chancellor. So I got to sit in all the meetings of all the different projects and issues that were experienced within the Algoma University, and I always took my every chance to talk about the history. When someone wanted to do something else with the building or whatever, and I said, remember the history here. You can look at it in a good way, that it can bring people to this area. You can use the university for teaching. The university becomes a whole teaching place, or it can you can take that away from it and lose the potential.
Yeah.
So they decided that they would apply for what is that status when you preserve something that's built there? So,
a World Heritage Site?
yeah, a heritage site. Yeah. And that's what it is now. But it wasn't just because it was their idea. It's because we, as former students, kept pushing for it. And being on the board, in the board of directors, give me direct access to talk about it and tell the story. So I find that was very helpful.
Absolutely. Joanne, I don't want to leave you too much out of this conversation either. I'm curious, because I genuinely don't know, do you have any experience with Algoma University and its, I guess, more contemporary shape now that it's no longer a residential school, that you would like to share, and maybe that's interesting to you to talk about?
I could just say that Shirley and I were both students there in the fine arts program, and she graduated in 2009. She was 69, and I graduated a year later at age 50. And I was adopted and grew up in Southern Ontario, and in both high school and elementary school, I knew nothing about residential schools growing up. So it wasn't until I moved up north where I started learning about those things. I met my Indigenous birth family in my 20s, so I've known them longer than I haven't. I'm 66 now, so, but I still didn't learn a lot about residential schools until I went to the university, actually. Yes. And when I first met my birth family, I went to a reunion, but I didn't know what it was. And everyone was very sad there, and it felt heavy and dark, and I didn't want to be there. But I didn't know what was going on. And because I just met my birth family, I didn't want to ask anyone.
Yeah.
So, but it was terrible. It was dark and just depressing, the place that we were at. But it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't until I went to university that I started learning more. And yeah, that's what I'll say about that. Yeah, I had a lot of catching up to do.
It's interesting because it's not something I necessarily would have thought of, but I like that you mentioned that you felt maybe uncomfortable asking questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that's still the case today, that people feel uncomfortable asking questions about the residential schools? I say you, both of you can answer this, I think. Do you feel that people are still uncomfortable asking questions about residential schools? Because my understanding is that it's starting to change, but I'm curious what your perspective is.
From my perspective, I am happy, because I am happy to be asked. Because after all these years, it's been 40 years since I've been an active member of the Children of Xinhua, and that's what we do. We find different ways and means to talk about the story, to talk about the lives of the children. But what's really, really, really important, and for me, it was a turning point, is we started to talk about healing from the trauma, and we started developing ways in how we could do that, because it's a long journey from the time that we were children and over the years, and there are very many impacts that come from that you take home as well. And so to get over that, you have to come into your own space somehow and start that healing process that enables a person to talk about their childhood as part of their path, but not still be in it. And that healing is really, really important. And I think this book that Joanne has written is a very important part of that healing journey as well. Because not only the Indigenous people have to heal from the trauma of that era and that time, but Canadians do as well. And they won't be able to do that unless they know what the story is.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I don't know, Joanne, if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, the only thing I could say is I'm happy to be asked questions too, because I know what it's like not to know. And like the publishers ask me so many questions, and they feel safe asking me because they know I'll just shoot from the hip. And like there were a couple things in Shirley's book that I fought for, and I just told them to have courage, be brave.
But that was one of the questions that I had actually considered. Like, we can formally get back to the book, I guess, for the last few questions. Sorry, I sometimes ask questions as I'm thinking, so I apologize for that. But you mentioned some of the terminology, got maybe a little bit of questioning from the publishers. Were there any other, I guess, hurdles or issues from the inception of the book to its actual publication that you want to highlight? Because just from an English major perspective, I am interested in the publication process of a book, whether it's this one or any other.
I can answer that, Shirley, if you want. Working with the women at Second Story Press is wonderful. And I've especially formed a really good friendship with one of the publishers, Emma, and like she knows she can ask me anything, and I can be really upfront with how I'm feeling about things. Like if I have fears or concerns about anything, like it's a very open relationship. So, and if there's ever, if they want to edit anything or do anything, if I can explain why I put it there, they're more than willing to keep it there. So they're same with the Water Walker. When we published that, they're very good to work with, and they're very respectful. And as long as you can explain, like it reminded me of my graphic design classes, as long as I could explain why, then it would remain. So I think did I answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm always just interested in the behind the scenes more than anything else.
Yeah. No, sometimes there were, especially when it came to the jail thing, was the only thing where I had to take a weekend to think about how to respond, because it was very important to me that stay in there, because if Shirley's 3-year-old brother can be hauled away to a school, 9 and 12-year-olds are old enough to hear the story about Canada's history and what happened to children. And so I fought for that one. It wasn't a hard fight. I just had to calm my language down. Right away I was upset, right? But it was I explained why I thought it had to remain, and they were like, okay. So it was worth the weekend, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that it's on a certain level, telling a story like this is an act of bravery. And I think that definitely fits in with that category of bravery, of being able to express the artistic decisions and storytelling decisions in a way that goes beyond instant emotion, which can be very powerful and very helpful, but it's also about more than that, from what I gather. And I think that's a very salient example of what we're talking about, of the bravery of publishing something like this. I don't know if you had anything to add on that. It's just that's what came to mind.
I don't think so.
That's fair.
But Shirley is the greatest example of bravery, right?
Mhm.
So yeah. So I had to put on my big girl panties for you there, Shirley.
Well, another thing, I'll talk about this from my perspective,
Mhm.
is that if you had wanted to write the book, say, 15 years earlier, I might not have been in the same space.
Mhm.
It's many of the former students, when they first come out of school and so on, live their life, have been traumatized and are very angry. There are so many that were so angry. Some of them went to the creator with all that anger,
Mhm.
and never really got to deal with the hurts and the trauma that they experienced.
Mhm.
And that's the sad part of the story, but I'm glad that I went through the healing process, and I can talk about this without the anger seething below.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, I still believe that it wasn't right. It wasn't the thing that should have been done, but it was done. So I choose my life to look at, to see what can I get out of this that's going to help my people.
Mhm.
And I think doing the work that I do, and things like this this book are all lead to the same goal. And I'm very happy that I was able to do that and share that with Joanne, and be there while she was writing it.
Mhm.
Because I think she was angry too.
Yeah, there were, every once in a while she'd tell me a story, and that was one of my concerns too, is after the book's finished, that's not the end, right? Then you start visiting students. And I was like, how am I going to talk to students when I have such a potty mouth? Because I get so angry when I think about what happened, right? But hanging out more with Shirley, I'm kind of maturing a little bit with my language to be able to speak about it easier. And that's a big thing, because I just couldn't find the words before, except for bad words, because it's horrible what happened. Yeah.
So we came together at a really good time. Serendipitous, I think, is what we're looking for. Like we came together, and I think inside we knew that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we never ever experienced any difficulty in regards to our relationship, in terms of you and the time we spent together, and you writing the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that leaves me with one last question. I have two last questions. The first one, you're starting to answer it, which is why I feel comfortable asking it now, which is, what do you hope people, especially children who read this book, get out of it the most? Like a simple, short answer, because you've talked about a lot of different things that could be gained from this book, but what is your main hope that people get out of reading this book? Shirley, do you want to start?
Okay. It's I hope that people look at this book as part of one person's experience. I don't speak for everybody else and their experiences. There are many, many, many experiences that people went through, and the way that they were shaped, and how their thinking process, and what did they choose in their life? Did they choose to hold on to that, or did they choose to say, I'm going to deal with it, and this is how I'm going to deal with it?
Yeah.
And it's a choice that you make deep inside when you're ready. And I appreciate the fact that Joanne chose to write this book, and to be with me, and I be with her while she did this process. I hope that it's experienced by readers who will get to know a little bit of the trauma that was experienced by the children that had to be without their families and their brothers and sisters and their loved ones and their communities, and that interaction. All the cultural activities were never done in the schools, and that was something that had to be learned after I left school. So it gave me a direction, and I'm glad that this sharing this story, I think is really important, and to let people know some of the day-to-day things that how we dealt with the loneliness and the negativity of where we were, because we were very resilient. Mm-hmm. And that I speak for a lot of the former students that came out. I was in Shingwalk with them. They came out of Shingwalk as well. So the resilience is the part that was always present. And we were always inventing new ways to deal with any trauma that came along.
Right. And I'll just add one short sentence.
Of course.
I just want to say that, like, especially for young readers, or even the world's upside down right now, so any reader, that Shirley gave us a good example. Like, she faced a lot of hardships with a warrior spirit. And so despite how difficult things got, she made choices to live. And I think that's really good advice for all of us today.
I think that's an excellent way to put it. Yeah. Please, Shirley. I don't know. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Thank you, Joanne.
So now I have an actual last question, which I asked to all of my guests. Regardless of the subject matter. What is the question that I didn't ask in this interview, if at all? And what's the answer to that question? Don't worry if you take the time to think. Like I said, it's an audio medium, so I can edit it out easily.
My favorite pickles are dill pickles. No.
There we go. That's it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not sure. There was one question that you didn't ask that I did prepare a short answer for.
Oh,
and
okay.
It was about the different style art.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so for the water walker, I didn't have any facial expressions. And because I let their message do the talking, so they just had eyeballs. But in Shirley's book, apart from adding the archive photos, I did add expressions because I thought it was important to show the added emotion to her story. So that was one. The difference from the first book that I did. So
yeah,
and I do like.
Thank you for that. You're right. I completely forgot that question. My apologies.
No, that's okay.
Shirley, was there anything that you wanted to mention?
I've told this story so many times and had so many interviews. I think we're just about covered everything.
Okay.
All I wanted to say is that it's been a heck of a journey, and I continue to work with the former students of the residential school, and just working to tell more people about it, because unfortunately there's still a lot of people in this country that still don't know about the residential schools.
Yeah.
So and it's part of the history of this country, and I think it should be taught in schools, and that people who come into this country and as immigrants should know those stories. And the more work that we do and have places for them to look at the history of what took place in this country and learn about it is very, very, very important, because unless you know about your country and your past history, you can't tend to fully act in the progression of it, the progress of the country. And that's what I think that as part of education of the stories of the residential school are so important.
Absolutely. The book is already out, if I'm not mistaken. It was published.
February.
Right. Okay, good. So I encourage all our listeners to go pick it up. Go to your local bookstore and pick it up. It is fantastic. And Shirley and Joanne, I cannot thank you enough for your generous answers and time that you've allotted to this interview. And I look forward to seeing the other projects that you come out with in the future.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, Patrick.
Always.
Thank you very much. And it's part of the continuing story. So I'm so glad that you to take part in this broadcast here. Thank you. Miigwech.